Oh, good morning. It's been a heartbreaking, horrific, shocking week. And I've made several reflections with this, my perception of some semblance of an interactive dialogue about what is going on here in the United States. I'm reflecting on my own understanding and insights based upon my innate wisdom, my education and experience as a citizen of the United States, and the way I was raised and my life experience. But just listened to a wonderful lecture, a beautiful lecture given by an esteemed and older professor, and with Pascal Lotus, lovely human being who represents an organization, Neutrality Studies. He's a professor. And they highlight what anyone who's paying attention or has been paying attention these past 23 years of never-ending war is that this is a systemic problem. Whoever is in power in this dysfunctional, psychotic military machine that is only in nomenclature represented by a government that has abdicated its duty to rein in the power of the military. You have a bureaucratic psychosis because all of these people who work there cannot imagine an identity outside of being validated by each other. And so they want to keep pushing this envelope to see where it goes, because that's your tribe. The state has become the tribe, and the state has been wholesale hijacked by the military-industrial complex, by the corporate states of America, and by this unholy alliance with the techno-fundamentalist agenda. Technology is in its infancy, tested it by the body politic and our own small things that we like, but it's also implemented. If you want to make a profit off of the technology, you have to implement it in the war machine, because that's where it will be mass produced. That's where you can ensure that you will get more resources to keep producing the things that you want to produce that are of the machine-made technological variety. Edwin Black is an amazing author of a book called IBM and the Holocaust, highlighting the very real relationship between international business machines, how they came to prominence as a major corporation in the United States, how they came to prominence in terms of being used by the United States or providing service for the United States with their machines, their tabulation machines, and these transitioned into, the fledgling computers. And where we are now with electronics is just, we've come so far so quick. It's absurd. I just purchased a tablet, which is pretty much all you need with a keyboard, for $14. Imagine that. And it does more than what supercomputers could have done forever. And the question becomes, why do we need this? Why exactly do we need this technology? I don't think we do. Not if we want to continue to support real life on this planet. And by all accounts, it's looking like many people in power do not. They don't want to support all life on this planet, and neither what makes human life and natural life viable and precious. It is important for me in these times of crisis to listen to like-minded voices, to listen to people who have wisdom, who know what they are talking about, who are willing to speak out, go against the grain, and not succumb to the state-sanctioned psychosis of never-ending war. Wars of aggression, criminal wars, and wars that we continue to lose every time, but that we are indebted to. We are $37 trillion in debt. I just read from Fortune magazine, we are borrowing $50 billion every week to pay to slaughter people in Iran. This is disgusting. This is wrong. Who, in their right mind, is lending the United States government $50 billion a week when we are $37 trillion in debt to kill Iranians? Are the war investors hedging their bets? They just want to see what they can get out of it. Don't want to let go of their power. Nobody wants to step out of their identity enough to admit that this is a big and outrageous, grotesque failure, as it was always going to be. As I sit here, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which was developed as a subsidiary or department of the Department of Homeland Security, which was obviously and ostensibly set up to be an organization that was there to harass citizens, there to monitor and surveil citizens, just in case you step out of line in this obvious bogus war on terror. 23 years later, ICE is now exercising brutal force, going into communities, dragging people out of their homes, dragging people off the street, people who live and work in communities, people whose families live and work there, because they are disenfranchised. Oh, well, you haven't achieved your citizenship yet. No, you're not as valid as the rest of the population. They should hate you. No, we do not hate immigrants. America loves immigrants. America is a nation of immigrants. There's some, people want to differentiate, my immigration was legitimate, theirs wasn't. Well, that is not only ignorant, it is stupid. You're a fucking idiot for saying that. The only thing that you are asserting is your greater access to privilege. Privilege granted to you by the state. And the state can take away anyone's privilege. Anyone who has a conscience, anyone who stands up for what is right, which is the life, liberty of another human being, anyone who cares about what it means to be human. The brutality of fascism, which is what we are experiencing, is here and now. It is amazing how much you can know and still not understand and learn. You have to relearn and learn some more about our immigration policies. I thought I knew plenty until I just watched an excellent documentary that highlighted how we have these detention centers all over the country. The money for them comes from ICE. This money is doled out to both Democrats and Republicans in their districts to build them. And these detention centers can be anywhere. What does that tell you? These newest detention centers that are being set up, some of them with awareness, some of them in obscurity, have terrible conditions in them. Who is going in and inspecting these places? Who is going in to ensure that people have access to adequate food, water, sanitation, hygiene? But then there's just this big question. Why are they there? Why should any immigrant be imprisoned when they have done nothing wrong? Well, it's to control the influx of people into the state and to control our politics and our economics. This has always been the case, but this is extra dastardly because you're dealing with so many more people, and we should know better by now. These detention centers have turned the switch socially because the mentality is that these people are expendable. The state has decided to deem immigrants as expendable, an alien force, a group of people to be eradicated, expelled, but they're not doing them the justice of even expelling them. They are keeping people in these detention centers that are run by for-profit corporations who are sucking our tax dollars dry for a state-sanctioned agenda. These detention centers are concentration camps. This is where they've gotten to. And they'll turn on a dime, they can become death camps. And I've already heard reports or read reports, nothing deep, and I don't want it to be true, which is why I haven't more deeply investigated it, that some places have hired incinerators to be within these concentration camps, which turns it into a death camp. The gross lack of sensitivity, of caring for other human life is happening in these concentration camps. The guards, many of whom come, oddly enough, from immigrant families, are placing bets to see who's going to kill themselves first. Is this the America that you want to live in? It is not the America I want to live in. What this beautiful lecture I just listened to is really just more beautifully and eloquently reiterating what I know with the contemplative, measured, reflective narration of an older professor. And he's hit the nail on the head, he and the host. This is a systemic problem. War is a game that nation states play, and they play to win, even if everyone else loses their life, their livelihood, their home, if the earth is scorched and polluted, if the world is no longer a safe place to be because it's poisoned by nuclear waste, poisoned by the toxic waste of chemicals, noxious, deadly chemicals, unexploded ordnance. War is a hellscape. And I can't repeat myself enough. The United States is acting today as a criminal entity, declaring itself unshackled by international laws, and has declared a vicious attack on a country while in peace negotiations. And after agreeing to peace, instead of agreeing to peace, waged war. Reportedly, because another state pressured the United States into acting and waging war. This is treason. This is treason. Treason against your country is punishable by death. And that is what has happened. There are so many complexities and entrapments in our culture and society, many of them excruciatingly transparent and trite. And this is why we have a U.S. Constitution, which our government barely pays attention to or has the wisdom to understand how it should be interpreted and amended to serve the needs of the people. The Iraq War was illegal. The Syrian War was illegal. The Libyan War was illegal. The unholy alliance between the United States and Israel is illegal. If you care about the integrity of your country, too many people do not, because they are on the take of the money machine. If you read about World War II, you understand how this industrialized genocide came to be. It was considered just another facet to this brave new machine age. We need factories to build munitions. We have factories to do with these people. I shouldn't even say that because it's not true. Concentration camps were horrible, awful places. Death camps were even more horrible, awful places. But what has happened now? Genocide, or the subtext and the subcurrent of genocide, has become commonplace. Americans are more cynical than they've ever been before, whether it's something that they want to discuss or not. Because we can pretend that this global news is not something that is pertinent to us because the bombs aren't dropping on us. Well, we have a threat within our borders, and that is these concentration camps. That is the state. The power of the state is upon us. Their first targets are immigrants. I have so many questions now that I know that we have these concentration camps. Who inspects them? Who goes in to ensure that their human rights are being honored? Who goes in to ensure that they have access to contact with their families, their medical care, adequate hygiene, adequate water? What are their living conditions? As I understand it, the Department of Homeland Security was trying to limit access by Congress into these concentration camps in their own districts. If you are a member of Congress, it is your duty to be going and inspecting these places. It is your duty to bring in Health and Human Services to inspect these places because you are holding these people here. You are holding them here. They are your hostage. They are our prisoner. It is wrong. Now, anyone who's bogged down by the workaday world in these United States knows that it is so easy to get caught up in the pettiness of your workplace and forget the big picture. But even in our workplaces, we see the dysfunction of our society happening right in front of us. The corporate states of America, where everything is commercialized, is not delivering on goods and services to the body politic that it needs. Our hospitals are being closed and are overtaxed in a shambles because they're for-profit hospitals. Our education is more and more being dismantled, even at the elementary level. Colleges and universities are having to close around the country because they can't afford to stay open because of a lack of investment in education with our tax dollars. That money is going to war. And these same companies who profit from war will show up on the university campuses of those that have the privilege of being opened and recruit people to work for them, as does the United States military. It's been going on forever, but this is my lived experience. It's happening now. I have a duty to speak up, speak out, and make my voice heard. World War III is upon us. Fascism is happening now. And everyone who is invested in this is letting it play out while people are dying now. People are dying in the United States. Soldiers are poised to die. A small number relative to the number of casualties of Iranian citizens, a small number of soldiers have died because instead of the United States fighting a battle with its armies and its soldiers, they decided to play very dirty and bomb people. Just like they carpet bombed and decimated Gaza. This brutality leaves you shell-shocked and flabbergasted and disgusted. And it's supposed to normalize the terror of the state as if it's just the way it ought to be. It is not. It is disgusting, and it needs to stop. Whether Americans, by and large, who have the privilege of ignoring what is going on, how each class of American feels the pain, because that is how pain is doled out, by what class of privilege you occupy, economically and socially. And if you have a conscience and you are human, that doesn't matter. You are immediately disgusted because you recognize and you know that this is wrong in your heart, in your mind, in your soul, however you want to communicate it. I'm not a religious person, but I respect faith. So I know that faith stands in the way of the injustices of the state. Ideally, a state that's supposed to be separated from the church and not ruled by the dictates of church. Is ostensibly married itself of its own dictates, Christ never invoked goodness on the United States, and neither did God. We are not in the Bible. Americans don't occupy the Bible. The Bible is ancient scripture. Ancient scripture that must be taken as allegory. And you take from it what is precious and good, which is to be kind to one another and respectful of one another, to surrender your false egotism and your gross egotism up to a higher power, to let it go so you can love one another. That is what God is, and that's what faith is. And everyone deserves the right to practice their faith and their culture. Cultural pluralism is beautiful. And what's beautiful about it is if you have the privilege and the opportunity to enjoy many cultures, you will realize the commonality of experience. You will realize that many of the different foods that we eat have some sort of counterpart that we borrow from each other. People are intrinsically loving, wonderful people. But it only takes a minority of very determined people to use their intellects, their power, and their ambition to destroy human bonds, to destroy what is precious. And this is the agenda of corporations. And I'm not talking about, a small business. I'm talking about the major corporations that are in the Fortune 100, Fortune 500. And there's either have nothing to do with what small businesses do, or they threaten small businesses because they want to gobble them up so they can have all the profits. Having said that, cultures are beautiful. And culture, in what I've read, has always been somewhat of an abstraction to me, but now it's just plain to see. It's very something simple. It's what we eat, how we dress, the songs of your tribe. These are beautiful things. The language you speak, which is beautiful. The literature that is created. And America has a beautiful culture that is endemic to the American experience. And it is born out of the people, out of their lived experiences, not out of a sanitized state dictate. America loves immigrants. America is immigrants, and Latina culture is nothing without, American culture is nothing without Latin America and its immigrants. They are the backbone of our economy because they are working so hard in industries that typically garner low pay and low status, despite them being absolutely integral and necessary. There is no excuse for robbing people of their human rights. None whatsoever. I've met people who are provincial, and it's strange because I've lived in Texas, and everybody thinks Texas, oh, they're so backward. Well, I tell you what, you can find backward people everywhere. And now that I moved to upstate New York, I find some people who are astoundingly backward in my eyes for having lived all over the country and as an educated person. Here in upstate New York, it's just a few hours from one of the biggest cities in the world, megalopolis, tens of millions of people. There seems to be some pale-faced Americans who are not hip to this concept of immigration. How could that possibly be? You live in a university town where you have people from all over the world. So I have a hard time excusing and forgiving ignorance when it deprives other people of their humanity. I've got a big problem with that. And that's been going on for half of my lifetime, ostensibly, in terms of the overt wars, the overt oppression, and the overt hatred. The militarized addiction to war for the United States happened after World War II. Said, oh, hey. We had the nukes. We had the factories. We had all the power. Then we had the oil money. Well, we had the dollar that was backed by oil. We didn't have the oil money. We pay dearly for this oil. We waste far too much of our personal incomes on buying oil to drive our cars. It's absurd, truly. Use oil for something. It didn't have to be used for a ridiculous and broken transportation system. It's highly inefficient as well as environmentally degrading. I'm not religious. And my feelings about faith, I've come to the conclusion, are personal. I appreciate people's right to join a congregation, to be a part of that congregation, because it's about community and service and sharing and human bonds and charity. If you belong to a church that does what you're supposed to do, which is offer charity. And from what I understand, when Muslim people come into this country, they have very, very strong bonds of community, of family. And that is a precious thing. I live in a world, in my own reality, my own family life. Our bonds are very much disjointed by the American experience. And while I love my family dearly, what I see is the state interjecting itself because where people feel lacking and unnurtured by their communities, they will unwisely look to the state. And then the state sends down this top-down directive to hate someone, to take up an attitude, to like this population and dislike that population. People who don't feel validated in their own personal lives will quickly take up that agenda that is dictated to them by the state. We've seen this with COVID. We've seen the outrageous pettiness that came out of COVID, where when I contracted the COVID virus, which was a pandemic, it was bound to happen at some point prior to the vaccine for all the vaccine maniacs, which I did get. Hopefully I don't die too soon from it. There is this perception that there's where people were very divided, and understandably, because people's livelihoods were destroyed and people were flung out into the streets because we don't have a strong society and a sense of togetherness that causes people to take care of each other. My mother was harping to me about, well, in Italy, they're giving people $3,000 a month. I'm like, well, they're not doing that here in the United States. People got a paltry $1,400, 2 installments of $1,400, and I think Biden might have kicked people some $2,000 checks. This is a joke. That is just a joke. And it wasn't, it was stopgap pay. It was meant to make up for what you weren't making. And this is another feature to this country, is that people are so well-trained monkeys as employees that there's this term I hear, double dipping. So it's when you're making income from 2 different sources simultaneously. These are not, this is the vernacular of the underclass, of people who are somehow questioning it almost, you're double dipping, not I'm earning income from 2 separate places. It's I'm dipping in. Double dipping used to mean something unsanitary and disgusting. And when you put it in economic terms, now it seems like it's something mischievous, or, haha, you rascal, you're getting paid twice. It's like, well, I have 2 forms of income. You're never going to find a rich person apologizing for the billions that they steal from the body politic. And you're never going to find the state apologizing for the billions that it steals from the body politic. And I watched this young man offer up what amounts to tasteless propaganda at this juncture. Because anytime somebody wants to vilify Iran, or even if they want to analyze Iran and describe what's wrong with Iran, this is propaganda. They're being killed right now, and you shouldn't normalize their death. It is wrong, and it is disgusting. This young man is likening the military of Iran to the KGB. And how they have problems there because they don't manage water well. Well, right now, the United States government has blown up several oil refineries and has wreaked havoc on the environment there. So tell me how that's good for the water supply. So in the midst of warfare, kindly refrain from criticizing the country that your country is illegally and criminally bombing. Thank you very much. And if you want to find graft, look at the United States military. $21 trillion is missing from the coffers of the Department of Defense, and no one wants to say where it went. There is a malaise in this country. People are frustrated and demoralized at their jobs. Work is not done well. Students have tuned out. Nobody with any sense, and that's a lot of people, wants these wars. War is hell. People are innately compassionate. I'm not religious, but I respect faith. And God is great. And God, to me, is love. God is my conscience. God is what tells me it's the higher power of the universe that tells me what is right and what is wrong. I prefer humanism. Humanism does not bother with this problem of the deity, but people seem to be confused by that too. The sin of Iran is how it's dared to challenge ethno-supremacy. We could say this is about oil, but that's a tired analysis because the United States did not get enriched by Iraq's oil nor whatever resources in any country. Now, Dick Cheney got very wealthy. Tony Blair became really wealthy. George W. Bush, I imagine, became wealthy. Any state actor who is able to garner money from the state became very wealthy. There are no checks and balances on this. We are, as a body politic, at odds with the state, if you choose to have a conscience. There's so much bloviation about personalities and this person and that person and what they said and what they did. The writing is on the wall. We have to recognize and admit the activity and not overanalyze the actors. And people have to act with nonviolent disobedience and perpetual awareness that this is not in our name. It is a death cult. And in the wake of it, regardless of what happens and who is sacrificed, it will not be good. So it's imperative that anyone has any sense tries and fights for what is good. In solidarity.